Welcome back to another episode of Many Tribes, One Kingdom. It's your good friend John here with today's video, and I have another 5 minutes in church history video for you today. We're going to be discussing the Diocletian persecution. If you don't know what the Diocletian persecution is, it's one of the darkest times in Christian history. This was one of the persecutions Christians had to suffer under the Roman Empire. Unlike the Neronian persecution we discussed last time, the Diocletian persecution was empire-spanning. It wasn't just centered on the city of Rome, like with Nero, and it wasn't just centered on some of the provinces, such as the ones that killed Justin Martyr and Perpetua. The Diocletian persecution spanned the entire empire. Diocletian became emperor in the year 284 AD, and for the first 15 years or so, he really wasn't much of an issue. Almost 20 years, in fact, he really wasn't much of an issue. But that all changed in the year 303 AD, when he suddenly issued orders that Christians were to be persecuted. Diocletian was a hardcore pagan. He was completely dedicated to the Greek gods, and in fact, he allowed people to venerate him as someone who would one day become a god, a very egotistical man. He was very cruel and very malicious in how he persecuted the faithful. He denied Christians any rights, any legal rights. They couldn't appeal their cases. They couldn't defend themselves. They had no right to own property. He ordered that churches were to be burned to the ground, that any copies of the Gospels that were found were to be burned with fire. He ordered that Christians were to be imprisoned and forced to make sacrifices to the pagan gods, and if they didn't, they would be tortured and killed. Many Christians suffered at this point in time. Again, Diocletian was a very cruel man. He also attempted to divide the church by trying to convince the bishops and priests to offer sacrifices so that he would let them go, and he said that he would leave them alone if they offered sacrifices. Again, Diocletian, very cruel towards Christians. That's not to say he didn't persecute other groups. He did. He persecuted any group that didn't fall in line with his belief system, but Christians received the worst of it. Diocletian himself would resign from being emperor in the year 305, and his successor, Galerius, would take up the persecution for another 6 years or so. This is when many Christians would either be killed or turn against the faith. They would turn against Jesus. And this led to an issue with the Donatist movement, which we don't have time to discuss here today, but maybe looking up who Donatus is on your own. In the year 311, after becoming very ill, Emperor Galerius issued an edict of toleration and in fact begged Christians to pray for him. Lactantius actually holds that Galerius became ill because of his persecution. God was punishing him. After that, 2 years later, you might be more familiar with the Edict of Milan, when Constantine I ordered that Christianity was to be made legal. Now, it did not become the state religion yet, but it was a legal religion that put an end to the persecutions that the Roman Empire had been implementing for the past 3 centuries against Christianity. In total, the Diocletian persecution is known as the Great Persecution. It's one of the darkest times in church history, and it sort of gives an idea of what things are going to be like for believers when Antichrist takes over, but we're not here to discuss that now. So I hope you've learned something new by studying with me today. If you did, I would really appreciate it if you give this video a like. By the way, I want to remind you there is still time to enter our Christmas giveaway for 2023, and I'll leave a link to the video explaining the rules in the description box. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day, and God bless you.